Hello and welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Welcome, everyone. We're super excited to have you here today. And I am Laura, or Oda. Other duties as assigned is what that stands for, and it pretty much describes what our agency is about as a business. We're here to help small businesses in the back end with the problems and the workload and the crazy insanity that goes along with owning a business, all that back end work. We're here to help you delegate that out. So, as small business owners, we're here to support each other, and that's what we do. Or that's our way of doing that for you guys. So, that's a little bit about ODAA and Angela.
Awesome. Yep, I'm Angelique. Love Strong with Lady Powerhouse. I forgot like what company. No, Lady Powerhouse Solutions, and Lady Powerhouse Solutions is a heart-centered approach for offering product and event management to women entrepreneurs that are on fire, lighting up the world with their passion and drive, and we help them achieve their mission in the most authentic way possible. Laura and I really kind of do really similar stuff, and in the the typical business world, you would think we'd be competitors, but instead we've become really strong power partners for each other, and referring business to each other, helping each other out when we need help with clients. And so that's, and the reason we do that is because we have an abundance mindset. We believe there's enough for everybody. And that's kind of how the podcast came to be and what it came to be about. So Fempreneur True Confessions, our mission is to empower women in business, and just in life in general, to live authentically, support each other, don't compete, and to model this through our business and our personal relationships to empower other women to do the same.
Absolutely. I love the way that you explain that, Angelique. Um, we want to normalize here the struggles, share the lessons, as well as all the learned in between things that you don't think would come up, with the common goal of lifting up other women, never tearing them down. We don't want to bring them down, but be cheerleaders for all women in business.
Yes.
So whether we're, in the same, field of work or we're not, being able to cheerlead and support each other and women in business is so huge. And they'll finding their success and building up their confidence, knowing they can succeed, and those gifts go a long way. So they are fulfilling their passion. So as women, that's, what we're here for, bring each other up and be supportive. So definitely love that. And with that, we have an amazing guest with us today. And her name is Elan Zelenka. And she is a self-expression and sexual empowerment coach who specializes in helping individuals embody their most confident selves in life, relationships, and business. While she works with clients to cultivate a deeper sense of safety from within, she also focuses on helping them explore their edges to uncover and discover their true personal power. We are looking forward to hearing about her transformation and journey of releasing shame and insecurities to living a life full of pleasure, genuine connection, and empowerment. Welcome.
Thank you so
So
much for having
welcome.
me on.
Yes, we are. So I tell you what, I am stoked to have you because this is one of my favorite subjects. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey, how so just dive in, share your transformation with us, your journey, how you came to learn how to release shame and insecurities
Mhm.
and move into this life full of pleasure and connection and empowerment.
Yeah, so just to paint you the picture a little bit, I grew up as an only child, and I grew up in a religious household, and communication was not really much of a thing in our household. And so that was the foundation of what I grew up with. Um, and, as I went through school, as I did my studies, I honed in on that good girl persona. I was the quote unquote good girl. I got good grades. I, was praised for doing good things, being in extracurricular activities, this and that and the other thing. And while that was all great and fine at the time, as I started to get older, I started to notice that even though I had all of these, um, you know, things that looked good on paper, I guess you could say, I had absolutely zero self confidence. I had no self esteem. I was so hard on myself all the time. I had no idea why. I remember having several conversations with my mom growing up, being like, I just don't get it. Like, I never feel like I'm good enough, no matter how hard I try. And she was like, well, I don't know either. I can't help you, you know? Um, and so when I started getting into romantic relationships, in my teens and then into my 20s, I also started to notice these patterns, the good girl patterns, um, the people pleasing tendencies were shifting into my romantic relationships. And so
Ah,
these patterns started to present themselves in the ways of I'm not actually speaking what I need right now, or I'm not asking for what I want, or I'm trying so hard to be a good girlfriend that I'm losing my own self identity in the mix. And so that, along with really just kind of having an avoidant attachment to any relationship that I was in, it was like I had these patterns. I didn't really have the awareness yet that I was an avoidant attachment, because I had no idea what attachment styles and relationships even were at the time. Um,
so that's a great point. So explain what an avoidant attachment style is, because
yeah.
I couldn't.
Oh, great question. Yeah. So an avoidant attachment is when there's conflict, any type of conflict in a relationship, you feel like you want to run for the hills. You feel really uncomfortable and unsafe in your body, and that sends signals, the flashing warning signals in your brain that you're not safe. And so
Okay.
you're like,
Okay.
oh, I need to leave. I need to just ghost. I need to do whatever I need to do here. Um, but I was also a very anxious person at the same time. So it was sort of a combination of just like anxious, avoidant. Uh, and yeah, so that really was how I navigated my personal relationships growing up. Um, and it wasn't until about my mid 20s and I got into a new, fresh relationship with somebody that I really recognized that, hey, I wasn't attracting all these men that had intimacy issues that I thought I was. Because in all the previous relationships I had been in, I was like, all these men just seem so emotionally unavailable. I can't go deep with them. They're the ones with the problems. And then when I got into this new relationship, I was like, oh my gosh, this has all been a mirror for me in recognizing that I'm the one with the intimacy issues here. So that really started my personal healing journey in that way. Um, And that has just evolved, especially as I've become an entrepreneur. That has been completely blended with how I also navigate business, because it's all related.
It is related.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
So, how long do you feel like it took you to do the majority of that healing process?
I mean, it's an evolution. It's a lifelong journey. It's the work is
Right.
never done. But I would say I really felt huge shifts um, at about the 2 to 3 year mark. I don't know if
Wow.
that's,
Yeah.
everybody goes at their own pace.
Mhm.
And for me, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a therapist at the time. I was doing all the work on my own. And so, of course, it takes a lot longer when you're on a journey by
Yeah.
yourself. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it took a while for me to really integrate a new way of being.
Yeah. And I
Absolutely.
say wow because, I've been on my own healing journey since late 2021.
Mhm.
And I have to commend you because I wish that I was 25 when I realized that I was the problem.
Yeah.
And meaning I was the one choosing into relationships with men that had a certain way of being.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a pattern,
Mhm.
but I didn't see it until I'm in my 50s, y'all. So
Mhm.
I am so thrilled that the younger generations are figuring things out sooner than we did. And I say wow about the healing because I'm one of those people where if I see something, and I was talking to another entrepreneur about this yesterday, when we see something we want to do, we start planning immediately and then executing. We're
Yeah.
executors, where
Mhm.
that's the type of entrepreneur we are. We come up with these great ideas and then we execute.
Right.
And because we want that evolution to happen very quickly. And healing doesn't happen quickly. Healing, health and well-being takes time. And, it took me decades to be as unhealthy as I was at the end of 2021. It took me 50 years to get that unhealthy. But yet I feel like, oh, it's been a year. I should be great. No, it
Mhm.
took 50 years for you to learn all those bad habits, all those bad behaviors.
Mhm.
You're not going to turn it all around in a year. So thank you
Mhm.
for being transparent because it does take time
Mhm.
and it is a lifelong endeavor. We are never going to reach perfection, right? It's a journey. Um, so thank you for that. And also for
Mhm.
sharing the avoidant attachment style because I think that's, and again, we need to educate ourselves about that kind of thing. So you got through starting to learn how to release the shame and the insecurities. So talk about how did you figure out how to get into the genuine connection? Because I'll be honest with you, when I hear that I have to connect with people after experiencing as much pain and grief as I have in relationships, I'm
Mhm.
not so thrilled about that idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could give you an example in my personal sexual history of when that really shifted for me, and also in my business. Sexually, there was a moment in time with that person I had said that kind of shifted everything for me, which is my current fiance 7 years later. And we had been having sex, and afterwards we were talking, and he was like, "Oh, did you enjoy it? Like, how was the experience? Like, did you actually climax?" And in the moment, I was like, because I had gotten so used to faking it, that was just the norm for me. And so when he put me on the spot like that, I froze, and I said, well, actually, I didn't. And he just told me in that moment, he was like, please never fake that and with me again. And I was like, oh my God. That was just a moment that really I felt like I was put on the spot, and I had this just truth come back into my being of like, wow, I hadn't even thought that, I didn't really think about it. It's just something that had become a habit of mine. And the more
Yeah.
I dove into that, the more I was like, I'm not being truthful to myself or to the partner I'm supposed to be having the most intimate moment with. And that's not good. Um,
Yeah.
so that really shifted things for me. And also professionally, business wise, as I started to become a coach, coaching is all about relationship. It's all about talking. It's all about connecting with your clients. And when I first started coaching, I was so terrified. I was like, I know I want to do this, but also, what if I can't actually help them to the depths that they need? And I would just shut off. I would get so nervous before calls that I would try to actually script out what the call is going to be like instead of letting it organically unfold. And I'd be sitting there sweating, just like not present at all, not present, not mindful, not like with the person, because I was so in my own head. So those are really some hallmark moments for me that helped me to see I don't have to, nothing is performative. I don't have to perform to get the good grade, to be a good coach, to be a good girlfriend. I just get to
Yes.
be myself authentically and fully. And that's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we just had our live on Tuesday, a guest that talked about being good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, do you remember what she was talking about? Because it's like I remember us talking about it, and the context of it was different. It wasn't the same as us believing we're good enough, but
Mm-hmm.
that what we're doing, who we are, is enough. That we don't have to, that we're not, like you said, we're not being graded. Who's grading us?
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's grading us? The big G in the sky?
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't gotten any report cards from her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so I think that's a common theme that we're hearing with the women that we're talking to. And I like to say that we're having a conversation, that we're sharing information, we're sharing stories, so that other women won't feel so alone, because we are all going through this shit. We are all going through what you're talking about at
Mm-hmm.
some point in our past, current, or potentially in our future, because we haven't faced the shit yet.
Right.
um so you've talked about your transformation, releasing the shame and the insecurities into living this life full of pleasure, genuine connection. And so let's talk about the empowerment, how that manifested for you.
The empowerment manifested for me through taking action in my life. Um, we can't think our way to feeling empowered, or feeling confident. It's a day by day actionable step. And so, with that, there are so many different micro moments in our day where we are faced with decisions, right? We're faced with the decision of, okay, should I exercise today, or like, should I call this person, or do I need to pay this bill? Like, all these things come into our day to day.
Yeah.
And when we take the time to really be present with what is, and not numb out on social media, on scrolling, in watching TV, binging, eating, the list goes on and on. If we can get to a
Yes.
place where we are
Pick your
truly,
poison.
yes, if we can get to a place where we are truly connected to our body, dropped in from our head down to our body, everything, all the wisdom speaks from our body. And the more that we become unconditional best friends with ourselves, that's really what self-love is. It's just unconditional friendliness of, okay, like, maybe I can actually listen to what my body is saying and not override with my mind of what it wants to do in the moment, and do the thing that my soul's been asking of me for so long. Just little steps here and there and here and there. The more you do that, the more you start to feel confident in yourself, right? It has nothing to do with the results of your life. We all want to have lots of money. We all want to have blah, 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 blah. These external things in the world that we convince ourselves that we need or want. But it
That's
all
and
comes back
often
to feeling.
society pressures us for that.
100%, yeah. But it still all comes back to the feeling internally on a day-to-day basis of how you're feeling about yourself. Sure, you may not look exactly how you want to physically, but if you're exercising and you're actually just taking care of your body on the day-to-day basis, that alone makes you feel a million times better. You're like, oh, I don't even care that much about the goal at this point because I just feel good about myself. So yeah, the empowerment really comes down to the micro steps of checking in with your body, checking in with your soul, and not letting this monkey mind always run the show.
Yes. Yeah, because, and I love what you said about, and I had to write it down, unconditional friendliness. I love that. That's going to be like my new hashtag, unconditional friendliness to ourselves. Like, we so easily dish it out to everybody else. And what do we need to be unconditionally friendly to ourselves. I love that. I freaking love that. So, okay. So what'd you say, Laura?
Oh, I was saying that was perfect because as she said it, it was funny because I looked at you because I knew. I was just like, oh yeah, she's gonna, you mouthed it. You were like, I love that. I was like, I do too. Like that. And it's
Okay.
what we don't do, you know? You're right. We're friends or friendly or nice or kind of whatever to so many other people and everybody else around that we forget that's that same man. If I treated myself the way I would treat some of the people around me, this would be wow.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like there's an exercise that another coach that I first heard about experienced with another coach, where she says, okay, I want you to write a letter to your 5-year-old self, and and just apologize to them, and ask them to forgive you. And then I want you to write a letter back to her and say, I forgive you. And, those from the 5-year-old. And that's a really powerful exercise because it puts you in the perspective similar to, all of the negative self-talk that we do. Would you say those things to your child? So it's the same type of paradigm shift, right? Like, no, I would never say those things to my own child, let alone someone else's, or what have you, but you just wouldn't say those awful things to an impressionable child. Well, they're not loving. They're not unconditionally friendly. And so don't be doing those things to yourselves, essentially, right? Um and I totally agree with you, Elan, because empowerment doesn't come in a whoosh, right? It isn't like all of a sudden you have an epiphany. And I think, like you said, there are big shifts that happen. But true empowerment is like this nice roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
where, you're like, um, you know, making this small progress. And then the next day you'll make big progress. And then the next day you'll fall flat on your face, um, and beat yourself up over something really stupid and small. Or you'll fail in some other fail. And I don't see failure as a bad thing. I think failure is just feedback. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but empowerment, it's just like any other growth process, right? Like it doesn't all happen, and you don't really want it to happen all at one time. That's just a lot. Like,
Right.
I was talking to a client, and how we were talking about similar, other coaches and what they do, and kind of picking her brain, like, what do you love about what they do? What do you don't love about what they do? And one of the things she said was, I don't want to be one of those coaches who's like a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
you know I want it to be more like, when you first pick up a newborn baby and you're being so careful with that tender, soft, new, because when people are going through transformation, they can be tender. It can
Mm-hmm.
be, I know me, I was raw,
Yeah.
in the beginning of my healing process. So, um, thank you for sharing your personal story of what that looks like for you. I think it looks differently, for everyone, but there's that common thread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We,
definitely.
we found that to be true with that common
Um,
thread for everyone. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned shifting it into this pleasure and into a pleasure-led life, and how that affected your business. And so what are some of the specific um experiences that you had that you can share that might help somebody else be like, oh, okay, I can see how allowing myself to have that pleasure-led experience in my personal life can empower or nourish my business.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I think you can even make pleasurable decisions in your business. You can make your business in general pleasurable. Um, so
I mean, why are we doing it if not? I mean,
right, right.
yes.
Well, we all are a little bit masochistic as well. So I do get that part for us. We all like to inflict a little bit of pain on ourselves. just I don't it's just a human thing, and that I think is also part of the whole experience. Um so I always like to talk about pleasure as pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin. Both physically, emotionally, mentally. And so, as humans, of course, we're always trying to avoid pain and we're always trying to move toward pleasure. The part that we get hung up on is in our pursuit of pleasure, we tend to gravitate toward, especially in today's age, right? We tend to gravitate toward instant gratification type of things, or things that feel pleasurable in the moment, but aren't necessarily good for our long term best self, right? And so I'm not talking about that type of pleasure. I'm talking about the deep, soulful, juicy pleasure that is fulfilling. Um, and when you start to embark on a journey of incorporating that type of pleasure into your life, what is necessary is that you have to learn how to embrace all of the shadows and all of the downs and all of the icky, murky stuff that we don't want to necessarily look at. And that's really where shadow work comes in. I don't know if you ladies have ever heard of shadow work. It's really just, talking about and uncovering all the shame, the guilt, the suppression, the things that you want to deny about yourself, right? The shadows. And so I really start with that, and that's for me in my own personal life was I had to be brutally honest with myself and where I was at on all levels of my life, in all areas. Because I started to notice that I was always running in everything I was doing. It felt like I was always running, like always in a hurry, always rushed. And that is also a huge hallmark of not being in your pleasure. Being in your pleasure is having the time and the luxury of slowing down and being so present that you're able to just observe the birds outside and you're able to just be with yourself. And if you're feeling rushed all the time, you're not able to do that. So for me, that tangibly looked like meditating, getting myself into a grounded state, actually doing practices, mindfulness practices that allowed me to be present in the first place. Breath work, voice activations, going on nature walks, being in nature as much as I possibly can. And from there, that really gave me the space to be like, okay, I'm not in my fear, anxious head brain anymore. I'm actually present with what is. And now, what are the choices or what is the path, that actually makes me light up, that feels fulfilling? And this is that's like a big general sweeping what feels best for my soul, but that can be, narrowed down to very granular moments in your day as well. So sometimes that looks like taking a bath in my bath, like in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, or sometimes, or sometimes that is like the pleasure I know I will receive once I go and do that workout, even though I know I don't want to necessarily in the moment. That's my highest self calling me to do that, right?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect to it, and also being able to cultivate safety in my body, being able to feel safe in any situation at any point in time, and not rely on my external world to dictate how I'm living my life. That makes any sense.
It does, but I'd like to, because people, I hate to use the word buzzword, but it's a common theme that's coming up a lot is feeling safe in my body. I just want to feel safe in my body. What does that freaking mean? I think it means something different for each of us, but I think there's a good overall understanding of what that means. I suffer from anxiety, and it manifests in my body. I feel it in my body before I feel it anywhere else. I have a physical reaction to the anxiety, and I have to then address it physically by doing a physical thing. And that's what calms and for me, it's tapping. So tapping really helps me get control of the anxiety. Um, and I know it very quickly because then my body reacts favorably, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel safe in my body. So for me, what that means is when I'm feeling anxiety, my body feels unwell. Like I feel sick to my stomach, my heart rate increases. I feel like I'm just going to be sick. And when I do the tapping, I can feel my body calm down and I feel like okay, I can be present again. Because when I start to feel anxious, I immediately want to um disassociate, like get away from that feeling. So that's been my experience. What about you? What does it mean for you to feel safe in your body? How do you get to that state when you recognize you're not there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, feeling safe in my body is there's like a quietness, right? There's like a spaciousness, clarity, relaxed, um, relaxed essence, I guess you could say, right?
Ooh, I
I
like that.
my muscles are relaxed. I notice that I'm not tensing my
Oh,
jaw. I'm able to, you can also hear the quality of your thoughts, right? If you are a person that can hear your own thoughts. Um, but taking note and awareness of what are my thoughts looking like right now? Am I being hard on myself? Am I is it sort of like this little buzzy voice that's like, you need to do this. Oh, you're behind on this. Oh, you know, um, that happens for me personally when I'm in an anxious state. It immediately just goes to being hard on myself, not being good enough, being behind, all the things. And so when I've noticed that start to come up, and I feel it in my body as well, it's just like this general feeling of adrenaline. There's pressure in my chest. I feel like something bad is going to happen. And so I'm in full kind of like flight or fight mode.
yes.
Sometimes I'm in flee. Again, that's the avoidance of wanting to run away and just be in a little ball in a cave. Um, but when I notice these things coming up, I will ask myself, okay, what do I need in this moment? I ask my body. We don't take the time to realize that our body is very smart and we are very intelligent beings, and we don't have to necessarily always um, have some specific protocol that we do, because in every moment may look different, right? So
Yes.
if I'm feeling that I need to go and exercise or do yoga or something physical to get back into my body, I'll do that. If I'm feeling in the moment again that I need to go meditate, I will do that. If I feel like I need to go scream at the top of my lungs into a pillow, I will go do that. I'll have a full I actually just had a full rage session last week that was absolutely beautiful, and I came out of it feeling like a whole new person, because I was like, I just let all the anxiety is pent up energy in our body. So the more we can just move it through, it's like, wow, I'm back to feeling great. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away, right? And I think anyone who's experienced anxiety knows that sometimes you will do everything that you can to try to get rid of it, and it will just linger for a bit longer than you had hoped. And that's okay too. Coming back to the unconditional friendliness of how can I just now give myself compassion and essentially hug
Grace.
myself through this experience?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you, Laura? Do you have any experiences that you or practices that you use when you need to feel safe in your body?
I do, but I think because I've been such an open person, when it comes to like family and friends, those my very inner circle close bubble, that when I start to feel anxious about anything, I pretty much just say or do whatever the hell I need to in that moment. So if it's, if all my senses are being shut um crazy and shot all over the place because the kids are too loud. And that will bring on an anxiety attack for me. So then in those moments, I would do something like yell at the kids. Really, is that as loud as we're going to be? Can we calm it all down? And they'd all like stop. So it's for a long time I didn't have a battle against it. I was able to just more like get it quick, where if I needed to scream in a pillow, I don't even know if I always waited for the pillow or whatever. But mine were more button pushing, checking boxes until that last piece of straw came on, and it felt like an anxiety attack, but it also was a sensory overload. So then for me, it was always 0 to 60 until about 2 years ago. And then I started learning, like, okay, maybe if I just take a deep breath, but it was never an unsafe feeling in my body for me. The anxiety, it was more the overload, the sensory overload feel that you get where you're like, okay, yeah, my head is really about to blow. Um, so that creates more rage for me and not anxiety. So it was those things,
Mm.
but yeah, the doctors always, the doctors like, well, it's an anxiety thing. And I'm like, I don't know if it's anxiety or rage, but either one it is, there's the same reaction, and I do the same thing to calm it. So, but now
Gotcha.
the connection to stuff where I will go meditate or I will go spend time. Um, I had done an exercise where I realized that as a child, I love the sky. As an adult, I love the sky, but I was told forever to stop daydreaming. Take your head out the clouds. Get out of it. Get back to focus and be where you need to be, and all of those things. And so now
Mm-hmm.
I have lately, in the last few months, found that I love to just sit outside and watch the freaking clouds, where it's like, and people are like, aren't you bored? And I'm like, I am having so much fun because I have missed years, decades of not being allowed to put my head in the clouds and just be like, oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, certain things like that you learn along the way. But yeah, that keeps
That
me.
is really cool. And I think that we need to tap into and practice allowing our intuition to lead us into what we need
Mhm.
um in order to, you know, some sometimes we don't know. We're so inundated. We've been so conditioned by society, by patriarchy, and so many different things of how we should feel, look, act, heard, don't be heard. That, it's hard for us to figure out what it is that we want, that
Mhm.
that is pleasurable. Wait, is that pleasurable? I can't remember because I've been told for so long that that is naughty or taboo or whatever. And um I think tapping into our intuition because it knows. And for me, finding that voice and listening to it and getting familiar with it again, what has really helped me is writing and journaling, and um meditating is really, really hard for me because I have this brain that is just pinging all the time. So meditation, I can meditate for a few minutes, and typically it has to be guided by someone else. Um, just being honest. Um, but I feel like when I sit down, and I think so many of us avoid, we try to keep ourselves busy because when we slow down, it gives us time to think. When we slow down, it gives us time to feel. And when we slow down, we get back in our body and we realize how uncomfortable it is in there.
Mhm.
I have chronic pain. I am not comfortable the majority of the day. And so disassociating and distracting myself is a way of life for me. I wouldn't be functioning if I weren't able to do those things.
Mhm.
But in times where I can calm down enough and be still enough to do whatever it is that whatever practice feels good to you. For me, it's journaling. What about you, Elan? Is there something that kind of primes the pump for you to dip into the intuition and to figure out what it is that is pleasurable for you?
For me, a huge one is music,
Very
especially
good.
specific types of music resonate for my intuition, I guess, more than others. But yeah, when I'm feeling like I need to plug in, I will get my headphones and just have my headphones on for hours in the day. Um, and that also helps. I mean, we haven't even covered the whole ADHD topic, but I also have ADHD. So that being able to drown out all of the extra stimulus also helps me to just zone in.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
just realized what time it was. I've been having so much fun with this conversation.
Yes.
Um, um but I gotta go because I got another call. So, um, Alon, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story, and your expertise, um, and just being vulnerable and open. We really appreciate it. Laura, what is her offer?
So her offer is her masterclass, Sexual Empowerment, A Pathway to Self-Expression. So we will have that information in the show notes for you to be able to connect to that. And our ask this week.
Our ask this week is that wherever you are listening or watching the podcast, if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe wherever that is. That helps us tremendously, especially on YouTube. So wherever you are listening or watching, please be sure to subscribe um, and give us that follow or whatever. Um, and then we will see you guys again next week.
Yeah.
We are here every Tuesday between 3 and 5, and we will see you next time
All
on
right.
Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.